I'm not saying there's anything wrong with living in the hood, but when you have outgrew it and it's time, you know when it's time. There are good moments and there are bad moments, but my time was up. What's up, chosen champs? So I am here today to share my testimony. If you have been following me, you know that I have been having moving situations. So if you have watched my video from before when I was moving, I was homeless. I ended up homeless, then into a transitional home that I was paying from. The shelter helped me with that. They owned it. I was paying $500, which was really nice. It was a whole house. I was blessed. I lived there for 3 years. Then after I lived there, as you see in my last video, I ended up, well, my last moving video, which is probably like 15 videos down, I ended up moving, and I ended up moving into the projects. So pretty much I was living in the hood. I'm used to living in the hood, but the projects, I was grateful at the time. As you can see in my video, I was grateful just to have a home, because honestly, if you see that testimony, that was a miracle within itself. But I was grateful to have moved into a new place, but that was a challenge. But I have lived there for almost a year, and I had roaches since I moved there. They kept coming in, spraying here and there. It wasn't doing nothing. And I also had mice. I ended up getting mice. And I guess from the next door neighbor, or wherever it was coming from, through the walls or whatever, it's pretty much was kind of infested with it. But I would see them here and there, but they were there. So I was paying. If you know the projects, you know that you should be paying. If your income wasn't anything, you won't be paying much. But by me working, they looked at my income before taxes, so I was paying like $1,000 just to live in the projects, and they were supposed to have been helping me. But I'm not gonna speak bad on it. It's still a good program and everything. They still helped me at the time that I needed the help. So I was pretty much struggling to pay for a place that was infested with roaches, mice. It was always, for some reason, my neighbors next door outside, because it was like, you'll see the video. As you can see the video before, that's pretty much where I live. But my neighbors next door, for some reason, they would always have people over drinking and all that. And that's cool. But it would always be some ruckus over there. It would be violence over there. I would wake up and hear people arguing over there. I done seen fights next. I'm like, what in the world? And then some days you hear people blasting music real loud. It's not even my neighbors. It's the people across. I was right in front of a dumpster, so people would just come that don't even live there, dumping trash and dump. I mean, I walked out to a toilet. It's beds out there. I'm like, what? People just dumping anything. So needless to say, I was grateful to be living there, but I was just so ready to move. So I trusted God, and I put in an application at a place that I wanted to move to, and I asked God, if it's for me, allow it to be for me. Now, this process took so long. I got approved, but I was waiting for inspection and all this other stuff, and it took, I'll say 2 months. It took about 2 months for everything to get finalized. Then when it finally get finalized, the landlord of where I lived at is trying to say I'm behind on the rent. So pretty much the program that I was trying to get into to help me pay for the rent that I was living, they canceled it. They said, oh no, because you owe them for that month, the recent month, we can't help you because you have to pay them off first for us to be able to help you. Now, mind you, I'm already struggling. So I'm like, Lord, I'm not going to pay the rent here because I need the security deposit and the first month's rent to move. So I'm going to use this paycheck to be able to move, and I'll pay them off, gradually once I get the money. But it just didn't make sense to me to pay them if I'm about to move this month. You get what I'm saying? So why would I pay them $1,200 when I can pay the $1,200 towards me moving, towards my security deposit and my first month's rent? So when the people canceled on me because of what my landlord said, mind you, the leasing office snitched on me because I went down to the leasing office. I'm like, I move next week. So they called the program that was going to help with funding for me to move. They called them that day, and I had got an email the next day saying that they were contacted, and because of my balance due, they will no longer be able to help me. So I'm like, trying to do the right thing. I'm like, Lord, I didn't try to do the right thing. I went down to the leasing office. I done told them I'm moving. I did everything the right way. By doing things the right way, now I done missed out on this blessing that I thought that you had for me. Now, sometimes we got to think. Sometimes we think the blessing that God has for us is not our blessing. God sometimes wants to use that to show his glory in a mighty way. Sometimes he put us through a strong trial and a strong tribulation so he can show us his glory. So I'm all crying. I'm boo-hooing. Like, mind you, I'm like, I was supposed to move. At that time, I was supposed to move that next week. So I'm crying. I done threw away a lot of stuff at my house. I'm like, Lord, I thought you got me into that program. They were going to help fund my place. I'm like, I thought it was for me, Lord. Like, what's going on? You mean to tell me that I have to stay in the hood a whole nother year? And have to live with these roaches and live with these mice? But I say, you know what, Lord, I trust you. If this is what you want for me, I say, you know what? I had my little cry, and I was like, you know what? If this is what you want for me, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you because you have never failed me. Anytime I do the right thing, you have never failed me. Even when I don't do right, you still don't fail me. But when you do right, he will never disappoint you. Sometimes when you do wrong, it don't go your way. But this time, God showed up. So I'm all crying. So I hit the leasing office. I'm like, I'm sorry, ma'am. I won't be able to move in. Mind you, she been waiting 2 months because she was talking to the program, waiting for inspection and everything. So she been waiting 2 months like me. So I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I emailed her like, I'm disappointed, but things happened where as though I was still honest. I was like, I had owed the people that I live with, and they ended up contacting the other program, so I won't be able to move in. Mind you, it was $1,400 they were charging me. So she's like, give me a number. The leasing office, she emailed me like, give me a number. So she ended up calling me. So she was like, I'm sorry to hear the news, but will you be able to pay $1,200 a month? I'm like, I thought the rent was $1,500. She said, no, by you being in that program that you were supposed to be in, they were going to pay a portion of it. So we upcharged it. So they upcharged it $1,500 because of the program that I was getting in that was going to help me pay for it. But by me not being in the program and just that's cut off, it's $1,200. So all I have to pay is $1,200. Mind you, that's only $200 more than I was going to have to pay during the program. So I'm like, but she like, you going to have to come up with $1,600. Oh my gosh, $1,600. Because the program would have paid a portion of that. So I'm like, Lord. I told her, she said, so are you still planning on moving next week? I said, can we shoot it back for 3 weeks? She was like, ma'am, I've been waiting long enough. We can't shoot it back no longer. I said, you know what? All right. We'll keep the date for next week. And if it's God's thing, then it'll come through. And if not, then, I just won't move in. So she said, okay. So that following Monday, God kept telling me, go to this location. Because I looked up security deposit help. It was a bunch of locations, but some reason he kept telling me to go to this one. So I'm in the house like, I look up the directions. It's almost an hour away at this location. So I'm like, Lord, I'm about to go to a closer one to see if I can get help. God said, no, go to that one. So I was obedient. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to that one. As soon as I get in there, put in my information, the caseworker that I seen, she was such a sweet lady. Miss Shard, she was so sweet. She was such a sweet lady. And she wanted to help me so bad. Needless to say, my God, my God, he did it. He did it. He did it again. You hear me? He did it again. I only had to pay $400. They paid $1,200. They paid more than half of it. More than half of it. I only had to pay $400. That's the glory of God. I'm telling you, that was less than what I had to pay if I was to stay in that program that was going to help me. I would have had to come up with like $500 more, including the $400. So that's almost $1,000 I would have had to come up with. But because the lady snitched on me, well, she was doing her job, so I'm not even gonna say it like that. But you know, and because that happened, the program ended up denying me. And God said, you know what? The program denied you because I had to remind you who your source was. The source is not the program. The source is me. That's what God was telling me. That God was saying, you so focused on the program trying to help you, you forgot who the real way maker is, who the real money maker is. And God made a way out of no way. So now I'm seeing trees coming to my home. I'm seeing all these stores. The unfortunate thing is when you live in the county, in a better area, you have so many more markets, so many more stores, so many more resources, which is unfortunate. But I live out here now. I got a pool. I got a gym. Won't he do it? And the enemy tried to stop it. He tried to use that lady to stop it. And if I would have gave up and not went to the place that God told me to go to, if I would have gave up, like, you know what? Since they turned me down, then it is what it is. But I remember who my source was. So if you ever going through something, you have to remember who your source is. You have to remember who you need to depend on. I said, God, I don't need to depend on them to pay my rent. I don't need to depend on them to pay a portion of my rent. Only you can provide that. I know that you'll pay exceeding and abundantly whatever all I ask or think. That's the God that I serve. So I am sharing this testimony to show you how God pulled me out the hood, even though it didn't make sense. Even though I couldn't understand it, God had to test me. And now I'm in such a better place for me and my son loves it. My son loves it. I love it. I'm so glad I'm out the hood now. I'm in the area that I wanted to be. And let me tell you this, the leasing office that I live at, the place that I'm leasing now, I tried to lease before I moved in the hood. This is the same place I tried to lease before I moved in the hood. But I was not eligible. I could have been eligible if I went to my job and added some overtime, say I was getting overtime. And I told the lady I didn't want to lie. And a year later, God put me in the same exact place. Mind you, I filled out other applications. I wasn't even thinking about this place. This was the last place that I had filled out, and it went through. I say, ain't that funny? This is the place that I was turned down a year ago for being honest once again, saying that I didn't want to get my job to say I work overtime when I don't. For me to be eligible, I said, if this is the place for me, that's another thing. Stop lying to get into places, because God's not going to bless that. God's only going to bless when you're honest. God's going to bless when you're honest. That's when, as long as you're honest, God is going to bless that every time. So a year later, I moved in to the place that I was denied a year ago before I moved into the hood. You hear me? Moved out the hood, only had to pay $400 to move in. The enemy tried to stop it with that lady. He tried to use that lady to get them to cancel the program. He tried to make me doubt my God, that I wouldn't be able to move in. But because I trust God, because I believe him, because I know he has done it time and time again, won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? So this is my testimony, chosen chance. Remember, whatever it is you're going through, God is going to pull you out of it. You got to trust, believe, be obedient, and know that it's going to get better. Peace, chosen champs. I love you guys. This is literally down the street from our home now. Oh my goodness. God is just so awesome. I love him so much, and I hope and pray that you continue to put the Lord first. You continue to trust him because he knows his plans that he had for you.